Hello, everyone, and welcome to another weekly live recording of Dragon Talk. I am Greg Tito, and I'm joined by Chris Perkins.
Hello.
Hello. We are going to do a little bit of announcements, get ready for the D&D Twitch week, and then jump right into a Lore You Should Know recording segment. We don't have Mr. Matt Cerna today, so we're very, very sad. We'll have to depend on your expertise.
Oh, dear.
So I'm going to ask you lots of obscure things that only Matt would know, and get right to it. But luckily, I think our two subjects today are more Chult focused, so that should be top of mind for you at least a little bit. So just a quick preview, we're going to talk about the dangers of Chult, all of the things that are going on in the jungles there, including many of the fun diseases that are there, as well as another segment on the weird stuff that's going on in Chult, weird monsters that defy categorization, as well as some of the trickster gods that are worshipped.
Which we haven't said much about, actually.
It's true.
In any of our previous conversations about this product, we've been deliberately vague.
Exactly. And now you'll be able to get some of the story behind those from us here. So before we get into those segments, let's do some announcements. And apologies to Chris for having to listen to these many. I know, God, it's terrible. But to counteract that with Force Grey, Lost City of Omu, we debuted it last week. It is right now available in Twitch video on demand. So if you missed out on those first two episodes, please go ahead and check them out. One of the quickest, funnest, easiest ways to get into finding all those videos is on the collections tab here on the D&D channel. There's a collection there for Force Grey, and I believe actually one for Force Grey, Lost City of Omu specifically. So you can see all the new episodes in order there. That's where 1 and 2 are. And then at 5 p.m. today, that's right, just 3 hours from now, we're going to debut episode 3. It has been thoroughly tested and vetted by all of the gnomes here at Wizards of the Coast, including Sean Mayofsky, to make sure we don't get any glitches when running things through the thing.
What could be more fun than hanging out with a bunch of smart, beautiful people playing D&D?
Exactly, right? They're amazing.
Yep.
Have you watched the first couple episodes?
I have.
They're pretty amazing,
yes,
right?
They are.
Yeah, Deborah Ann Wall just fits right in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's great fit.
I can't wait to see her play more. And thank you to everybody in chat already. I want to give a special shout out to Polytechnics for the My Head ampersand Chris Perkins head. Well done, especially for this segment with the three of us.
It'll be a monster before the end of this segment. We'll have stats for it.
All the Beholder monster heads for all of us. All right, so...
Monster's called the T-Turkins.
The T-Turkins?
Yes.
Yeah, like a turducken, but...
Yes. Or the per keto, one or the other.
And you can get all those emotes with a Twitch subscription to the D&D channel. So if you don't know what we're talking about, it's probably because you have not yet clicked on that.
Twitch channel?
Yes, exactly. This one right here, where people are. You can now subscribe. It's $4.99. You get those awesome emotes, as well as some better ones of Milo, which are my personal favorites.
My dog.
Yes.
You can get a Milo emote.
Exactly. Really cool. There's a Beholder. There's some TPKs in there for when you're watching Dice Camera action. Those come in special use there. And there's also some badges for you available. And
badgers?
We don't need no stinking badgers. $4.99 for badgers? We don't need these. This is ridiculous. But on top of all that, you also don't have to watch any ads when you're viewing on the channel, so you can get right to the D&D live play stuff that we do here.
Halla effing Luya.
Exactly, right? You know, do you do that on Hulu by any chance? Do the ad-free stuff?
No.
It's worth an extra $4 a month for me to be like, I can get through all of that to get right to the sweet content. Neverwinter, Tomb of Annihilation was out. You might have heard Chris Perkins' voice.
That's right. I do the voice of Volothamp Gadarm.
That's right. Giving monster hunts.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Do you still have all of your lines?
Sage advice.
Do you have your lines memorized?
No.
Dang it. What about the voice? Can you do the voice for us?
I don't remember. It probably sounds something like this.
That's awesome. That is exactly what it sounds like in game. All right, so we're going to call on you whenever we need a smarmy voice.
Danger waits around every corner.
I love it. I feel like he's like an old-timey guy with like a seersucker suit on.
Yeah, there's like a little hint of transatlantic buried in there, I think.
Love it. So that's out on PC right now. You can go download it for free. It's at playneverwinter.com and get into Neverwinter. Again, this is the last storyline or the most recent storyline that they've done for us, but they've been keeping in cadence with all of our storylines, including some of their own, which are really, really great. So go check that out.
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful expansion.
Yeah, I've seen the jungles of Chult and the dinosaurs and the ruins.
They put a lot of work into the design.
It looks beautiful, and you can do it right before Tomb of Annihilation actually comes out on September 19th. So
ride your dinosaurs now.
Exactly. Through Port Nyanzaru. HasCon is also coming up September 8th through the 10th in Providence, Rhode Island. There are a bunch of fun events in Dungeons & Dragons world there, some of which you can play with your children. So a couple of the events are aimed at parents and kids under 10, as well as one that's parents and kids over 10. So if you have people in your family who may be interested in, say, some of the other brands that Hasbro has in store, like Transformers or For Real Friends or Star Wars or Marvel or any other the licensed stuff that is going on there, you can be like, hey, you can check out Dungeons & Dragons too and have a fun family experience there. Again, it's in Providence. I'll be there. Chris Perkins won't be there. Mike Merles will be there. Chris Lindsay will be there, who, incidentally enough, is going to be on later on this very podcast to talk about.
And Richard Witters will be there as well, our senior art director.
Right, so there's a world building panel that Rich will be there, as well as some magic folks, I think. So that should be super fun. It's tickets are on sale now. hascon.hasbro.com. Click on the tickets tab and scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see a lot of the D&D events that I've been talking about on sale there. Hope to see you. D&D Beyond comes out next week, August 15th. It'll be completely launched. It looks amazing. You can build characters. You can quickly build random characters, which is kind of the fun thing that I like to experiment with, is like, oh yeah, here's a random character that I might need for an NPC or something like that. It's all legal and it's all wonderful.
Works on your phone, your tablet, your PC.
Yes, and I think it looks really good on tablets and phones. It's optimized for that. And the team at Curse under Adam Bradford have been doing a fantastic job taking all of the feedback from the beta that's been out there for the last few months. I think the last couple phases of the beta, integrated as much as you can, and they're going to keep iterating on it and making it better. So I'm really excited about that. Look for it August 15th. But if you want to check out all the free features that are available now, dndbeyond.com. That's where you can find out more. Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms has been introducing a whole bunch of interesting new party members who you may recognize from Forgotten Realms lore. So there's, I don't think there's a Volo, but there is a Jarlaxle.
Gasp.
Jarlaxle is in there,
as
well as
cool.
Minsk and Boo. And there are also the Force Grey champions. So we mentioned them earlier. There's, I think all 5 of the party members will eventually end up in that game, but at launch, I think the 4 will be in there. Go check out idlechampions.com to see fun, kind of cartoony versions of their characters represented in Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. And if you don't know what an idle game is, I'm going to tell you once more. It is kind of like setting up your party members to go out on adventures while you're not actually manipulating them. You can kind of change it and optimize it and make them more successful at what they do. But if you go away from the game, they will continue to fight and go on adventures in real time, collecting XP and earning gold. And if you check back in after a few days, you'll be very surprised to see that you'll get gajillions of gold and quadrillions of XP.
Assuming they're not all dead. No, right.
I don't. Well, that's a good question. I think 1 or 2 of them may perish, but it's kind of like this always on thing. I don't think they would do that. I don't think they'd be like, oh, everyone's dead.
You come back and
right.
Everyone's dead.
And there's like pushing up daisies. Oh man, screwed up. I think that's definitely not going to happen, because what happens, you'll get in there and get all those rewards, and then the cycle begins anew. Again, that is also going to be a free-to-play game coming out on Steam in a couple months. The D&D Adventure Grid is coming out October 17th. Did you know about this?
Is that the unfolding playmat?
I believe so, yes.
With the double-sided. It folds up like a game board, so you can pack it away and transport it very quickly, and it's got the sort of same game board varnish, and it's wet and dry erase friendly, and it's got a dungeon surface on one side and a wilderness ground surface on the other.
He knows all the things about it. I don't even need to do that announcement. That's
I don't
perfect.
even have one, but I know it.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
And again, and it'll fit on a shelf. That's one of my favorite
right.
things. It's like it's like a bookshelf type sized product.
Yep. If you throw it too, it does a D4 damage.
What if you get like the perfect like point into the eye? Can you?
Then it's D4 damage plus lawsuit.
And we'll be
plus legal damage.
We'll be tweeting out rules about that very soon in Unearthed Arcana.
I heard all about legal damage from our legal department.
Legal damage is a real thing that we need to really be capping now. I want to play the lawyer class. I've always wanted to.
Oh, God. This is so much like real life now.
The barrister class. All right. Well, I think that's all of the crazy announcements we're going to get to right now because Chris's time is very important and we need to get to the fun lore stuff.
I do have one announcement, and that is I will be at PAX West the weekend of the 1st and the 4th of September.
That's right.
So not only will we be running Acquisitions Inc. game, but also holding a panel for Dice Camera Action, my weekly D&D game, and people can ask me questions about why I do the mean things that I do.
Maybe we should ask you on here one of these days. Why do you do so many mean things? Yeah, that'd be a good call. And then Dice Camera Action is tomorrow, right?
It is tomorrow, yes. Our penultimate episode of Season 2 is tomorrow at 4 p.m. PT.
Sweet.
With guest star Danny Hartel.
Nice. And who's she playing?
She is playing Zandala, a character who figures prominently in the Tomb of Annihilation story, introduced early.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
Yes.
And Danny, you may know, she does craft hags here on this very channel. We host her, but then she also made the Batiri Goblin Mask you might have seen during Stream of Annihilation. Good stuff. Yep. And I can't wait to see her. She's a great role player. That should be fun. All right, then. Well, then let's get right to our lore segment, shall we? You ready, Mr. Ryan,
yes,
to get it going? Bang, bang. Alrighty. Welcome to another Lore You Should Know segment. I'm Greg Tito, and today I'm joined by just one lore master, Mr. Chris Perkins.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Really good.
Good. In preparation for Tomb of Annihilation coming out on September 19th everywhere. Today's Lore You Should Know, in which we delve into fun little bits of D&D lore for your games, is specifically about the setting of Tomb of Annihilation. What goes on in the dangers of Chult, the diseases. So not so much the monsters, but what natural things are happening in Chult that are unique to that area.
Okay. So that's going to be our first conversation.
That's going to be our first conversations for this day. So
all right. So natural dangers of Chult.
And we can go also just in like how. I mean, we've been a few months since we talked about Chult as an area too.
Right.
So let's go into that a little bit.
So basically, Chult is a very large peninsula south of the Sword Coast, and it is mostly untamed, uncharted wilderness. It went through some upheaval during a period known as the Spell Plague and was actually detached from the mainland for a time by changing water levels and sinking lands and disappearing lands. With the end of the Spell Plague and the end of the Sundering, most of those lands have either risen or returned, and so Chult is technically no longer an island. But it is no less dangerous and no less uncharted. And pretty much people kind of know what's along the coasts, and then once you get about a mile or two in, it's completely unknown territory with all kinds of horrible, horrible things lurking there. Some of which you can't see because they're really, really tiny, almost microscopic, almost disease-like entities. Not to be glib, but there are a few diseases that and weird phenomenon that are called out in the Tomb of Annihilation product that characters will encounter as they make their journeys through Chult.
Are they natural diseases or magical?
A combination of the two. For instance, the Spell Plague created this mist, this sort of bluish mist that drifts through the jungle called it's called Mad Monkey Mist. And the reason it's called that is because when it comes into contact with humanoids, it causes insanity and makes them do batty things. And so if you don't want to come down with mad monkey fever, you best avoid these drifting clouds of mist.
What color is the mist? Is it?
It's a bluish tone. And it does look unnatural, and it does radiate as magical, so you can dispel it using dispel magic spells.
Oh, well, that's a good tip.
So if one is coming up to your camp at night, boop, gone.
When you're looking for guides in Port Nyanzaru, make sure you
The
have...
smart guides know about it and will warn you about it. The ones who are clueless will just lead you right through it. And next thing you know, you'll be dancing and capering around like an idiot.
Now, is it the madness that results from this mad monkey fever? Is it violent in nature, or as you describe, a little bit more cartoony?
It's a little bit more sort of incapacitating than it is turning you violent.
To know, like, well, here's Johnny type things happening.
It could lead. It doesn't make you psychotic, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
But it could lead you to harm if you sort of blindly go off like over a cliff or something.
Okay.
So it sort of impairs your judgment.
Is it like you enter like a catatonic state? Are you like aware of what's happening?
You're aware but can't help yourself.
Oh, okay. So like a nitrous oxide type thing, where
Right.
like you're, why am I laughing so much? I don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of like a weird drunken reaction almost.
All right. Are there people in Port Nyanzaru who go and find the mist for pleasurable
In fact,
inebriation?
Most people in Port Nyanzaru haven't even seen the mist because they've never gone out into the jungles and found it.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't come as far out as Port Nyanzaru, so it's never actually drifted into the city or anything like that, although it'd be funny if it did.
I read exactly. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to get the entrepreneur character out and like, let's bottle up the mist and we can sell it across the Sword Coast.
Exactly. I'm not sure if it would preserve. But anyway.
Yeah.
Another danger that you face there actually comes out of the groundwater, and that is throat leeches. And that traces back to the first edition Fiend Folio. There was a monster in the Fiend Folio called a throat leech that looked like a twig that you could accidentally swallow, and it would get in your system and do harm to you. We've sort of co-opted the name and adapted it. It still lives in sort of groundwater and stuff like that, but it's now not obviously a big thing. It's a tiny little itty-bitty, almost microscopic thing.
Yeah.
And when it gets into you, it can do some serious damage and even kill you if you're not careful. Because it sort of has the same uses the same mechanics similar to the exhaustion rules.
Okay. And so it almost like it introduces a parasite.
It does. It introduces a parasite into your body, and then you have to basically resist and or fight it off or get magical healing like a cure disease spell to whisk it away. Otherwise, it could kill you. And it's debilitating. It gets worse and worse over time.
I mean, the visual of a leech on your throat is quite horrible.
Yes.
Is it really that? Is it like a leech that just sucks air
exactly,
away?
Yes, precisely. Yeah, it's really, really horrendous. So it was nice to kind of delve back, find something that nobody thought anybody would ever use again, and sort of repurpose it for this.
Yeah, and is it in the Fiend Folio? Was it described as like a jungle type monster, or
it was just described as living in rivers and things,
okay.
As these ones do. Now the Chultans are aware of throat leeches, and the way they contend with it is that they drink rainwater. They have rain catchers that catch the water from the sky before it hits the ground, where the leeches can get into it, and then they drink out of those rain catchers, or they drink out of barrels or whatever.
Does boiling water
Boiling water will also kill the throat leeches.
Okay.
Yeah, as will a purify food and drink spell. If you cast
important.
that on a water supply, any throat leeches will be killed off.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. All right. So boil your water when you're camping, folks.
Yes.
Especially in Chult.
Yes.
Any kind of, now I'm thinking of the Amazonian fish that is known to enter other parts of the body. Anything like that happening in Chult?
No, there are no fish that swim up your butt.
Okay, good. Because, I mean, the throat was bad enough.
Well, there might be. I mean, a DM could throw one in, but I don't really see the point. Nobody wants to die from a fish up the butt.
No, exactly. And that's not very heroic for a story like this. No. What are some other dangers?
Some other dangers in the jungle are some of the local flora. There are things that you can avoid. There's everything from man traps, essentially giant Venus flytraps that feed on humanoids. And that's a monster in Tomb of Annihilation that you can fight. Albeit a fairly easy one to catch since it doesn't move very quickly. And then there are things like fruit that you can have that could be poisonous to you. There's helpful stuff as well. Cinderberries, for instance, are actually healthy berries that you can eat that will rejuvenate you if you can find them. But there's some bad stuff.
Is it like a good berry type thing?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. Yes. So there's some flora and some sort of minor fauna that you can encounter that are sort of unique to Chult. Nothing overly powerful or nothing that high-level characters would be particularly troubled by.
Right, but it's a long, journey through Chult, and if you're already injured
reminder,
from something,
watch what you eat, watch where you step. It's the usual stuff that you have to pay attention to when you're out in the jungle.
Yeah. What about things like quicksand or something like that?
Those things are quicksand is rules for that are presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and you can certainly run across quicksand in the jungle.
Yeah.
There are in Tomb of Annihilation. There's an appendix of random encounters, both in Port Nyanzaru and out in the wilderness, and many of those random encounters are things like environmental hazards.
Okay. And what about falling into like any tombs or ancient areas?
As happens, you just fall into a tomb.
Oh, sorry.
So possible. The only tomb that we discuss in Tomb of Annihilation is the big one, the tomb.
Right.
We don't introduce any tombs that you just accidentally fall into. But you might stumble upon remnants of old Chultan shrines dedicated to the god Uptown, and see statues of him that actually have magic inside of them. There's one statue, and this is giving a little bit away to players, but if they find it, it'll be fun. There's a statue of Uptown that has his symbol carved into his belly, and it's a circle like a maze, like a circle maze, kind of like the circle mazes you'd get on table mats at McDonald's or something like that. And if you trace your finger around the maze, the statue will reward you for finding your way out by giving you a sort of blessing.
Okay.
Sort of a supernatural ability for a short time.
Right. I think in Girl Scouts Glory, they recently encountered this statue.
Yes, but not all statues carry such boons. Some of them are quite dangerous. They have magical wards to protect them that are still in effect to this day.
Got it.
Glyph of warding kind of stuff,
Right.
Blow up in your face.
Right. Not too bad, but just enough to make it really bad.
Possibly enough to kill your guide, which would be a problem.
We're on our own now.
Yeah.
And especially if you travel by boat through all the rivers and waterways.
Rivers and waterways?
Rivers and waterways. We're hunting wabbits. Well, as you're hunting wabbits. Waterfalls, I guess, when rapids would also be.
Waterfalls are a big problem in Chult. You could find yourself going over one quite easily. All of the rivers in Chult, the Tariki, the Soshan Star, the Tath, they all have big plummetous waterfalls that you can go over, or that prevent you from continuing on. So you have to sort of
truck up a cliff face in order to make it. Yeah.
Other dangers of the waters there tend to be of a monstrous nature. There are creatures native to Chult called the Aldani.
Aldani? I've never heard of the Aldani.
Don't laugh, but they're lobster folk. So the thing about them is they're native to Chult, and I think they only live in Chult, and they've never appeared in any other product having to do with anything other than Chult. They used to be Chultans, but Ubtao cursed them because they overfished their rivers and transformed them into their current forms, and basically they became outcasts and feared among the other tribes because of their horrid appearance, and they withdrew to the very rivers that they plundered and were forced to kind of live there in their riverbeds.
And they were mad that they had overfished, so there was not as much fish for them.
Actually, they understood perfectly why Ubtao cursed them, and they sort of understood it and just sort of accepted it.
Interesting.
It was a weird case where they weren't bitter about being punished for something they knew was wrong. They realized what they did was wrong. Ubtao called them on it, and they were transformed, and they went, oh, I guess we're lobster folk now. But nobody seems to like us or trust us, so I guess we'll go live in the water now.
That's odd.
Yeah.
All right, we take this punishment.
It's kind of an enlightened thing. It was an enlightened decision on their part to embrace the punishment. And the thing is, with the lobster folk, despite the fact that they're scary as hell, I was going to say scary as fuck, but I shouldn't really say stuff like that.
That's all right. It's Twitch. It's not.
Despite the fact that they're really scary looking, they're not evil. They're actually sort of more of a neutral bent, and they've got a very strong self-preservation instinct. So if you threaten them, they'll try to bribe you so that you don't hurt them anymore.
Oh, so like adventurers.
A little bit, yeah. Well, adventurers never give up their money.
Well, I guess that's probably
unless
true.
They want something in return.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So you can actually deal with the Aldani on some level.
Nice. I didn't. Are they throughout, or are they just in one specific region?
You can find them in rivers. You can also find them in lakes and things. Where they are best known together is in a place called, fittingly enough, the Aldani Basin, which is a large, swampy, lake-filled area sort of sunken with jungle all around it and big tall plateaus all around it.
Yeah.
They've largely congregated there. And they have a problem there with some roving undead. So if you can help them with that problem, maybe they'll throw you a bone and give you something that, has been lying at the bottom of a river for 300 years.
Can they build? Do they have like shelters?
Not so much.
They just
they have no shelters. They just literally live in the water.
And they just fish and eat, but they're
they eat
intelligent beings?
They sort of eat like lobsters do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they eat crap that floats down the water, I guess.
That's
I don't know what lobsters eat. Hamburgers? I don't know.
They're always cooking up hamburgers, at least in SpongeBob SquarePants. I feel like they're always doing.
So they're certainly one of the weirder natural inhabitants of the jungle.
Awesome. Cool. Any other things to look out for as you're traversing through the jungles of Chult?
Sometimes it pays to look up because as a result of the spell plague, there are pieces of earth, pieces of the land that never settled back down and are basically hanging in the air over the jungle canopy. We, in Forgotten Realms terms and in D&D, call these things earth motes. And an earth mote is basically just a chunk of land in the sky.
That can fall on you.
And generally it's suspended there by magic and is in no danger of falling anytime soon, but it could. Its magic will eventually run out and it will fall, and if you're underneath, you won't survive. But there's also stuff that lives up there sometimes, and you have to watch out for that.
Right, as we mentioned on our dinosaur folk one.
Yeah.
Sometimes
the most famous earth mote hanging over Chult is called the Heart of Uptown, because it has a vaguely heart-like shape to it, and there's sort of like this big giant petrified tree on top and some roots coming out the bottom that kind of look like arteries and ventricles.
Oh, I see.
And because of the mineral deposits on the rock, as water sort of pours down its surface and runs off the end, it takes on a reddish hue. So it earned that name because the Chultans believe it is actually the heart of their god held out in the sky.
Yeah.
Like Ubtao lost his heart when the Chultan people disappointed him, he left, and there it is. So it's a holy place, and if you go there, that's fine. But if the Chultans find out about it, they will consider it a sacrilege.
Okay, so
don't go back to Port Nyanzaru bragging about how you looted the heart.
Yeah,
of
we were
Ubtao.
standing all over it, and we're stomping on the heart.
Exactly. Yeah, they'll be stomping all over you.
Exactly. All right, well, that's good to know, especially with the culture of what's going on there.
Yep.
You want to make sure you don't offend the very people that you're there to be used as guides.
There is something very dangerous living there now, but I won't tell you what it is.
Ooh, you're going to have to find out when Tomb of Annihilation comes out on September 19th. All right, sweet. Chult does not seem like a very hospitable place.
No.
What with the so we got lobster folk, or at least not
Although
necessarily bad, but
Port Nyanzaru is lovely this time of year.
even in the heat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or are they below the equator? So is it?
They're below the. I think they're below the equator.
Yeah. All right. So they're just getting out of the doldrums of it right now. Interesting. All right, great. Well, cool. A lot of stuff to delve into, and I'm hoping when people get Tomb of Annihilation, they'll die by at least 4 of the things we mentioned.
Die by throat leeches.
Oh, God.
What a way to go.
That's the most disturbing one. Oh, God. I hope there's no throat leeches in here. I'm done. All right, Chris, if people want to ask you more about what's going on in Chult, how can they get in touch with you?
I am on Twitter at Chris Perkins DND.
Sweet. And you'll see Dice Camera Action Crew perhaps in Chult in a few months.
Yes. The season 3 will kick off with the launch of the worldwide launch of Tomb of Annihilation on September 19th.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to that. Thank you, guys, and we'll be back next week with more segments. Sweet. All right.
Segment number 2.
Thank you, Crazy Red Bard, for subscribing. You are the Crazy Red Bard of my heart. And Warsdak, you subscribe too.
You are the Larsdock of my heart.
You're the Warsdak of Chris Perkins' heart. The heart of Chult, the heart of Uptown is coming at you. Yeah, that's right. So we're going to do the next Lore You Should Know segment, and that one is on... We touched on some of the weird stuff of weird monsters of Chult, and we're going to get even more into them, and perhaps some of the more the deities. Did you Did we talk too much about weird stuff already?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
and
good.
in particular, the trickster gods of Omu are near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. So we'll get to those as well as, I mean, I think the throat leeches and the other ones were ones that you wanted to save for this one, but.
Nah, that's all right.
All right. Well, there's maybe more.
Yeah.
To pull
There
from the brain of Chris Perkins. It's up to me to do it, though. I got to pull the tendrils. Part 2. Welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know, where we delve into some fun Dungeons & Dragons lore to infect it into your games. And today we're going to go into, well, first off, I'm Greg Tito. Hello. And I'm joined by...
Chris Perkins.
And we are without Matt Cernit today because he is on a vacation. But he will be returning for lore coming forward, and we'll do our best to survive without him. But today we're going to delve into stuff that's near and dear to Chris's heart, especially as we deal with Tomb of Annihilation that's coming out on September 19th. And it is the subject of strange monsters that you may not find anywhere else but in the jungles of Chult, as well as some strange deities, which we have never before discovered.
Yes, brand new.
Yes.
Or brand old, one of the
brand old. Well, let's get to them at the end of this little bit of a segment. But what are some other strange monsters that may have been pulled from old lore from Chult, but then also just made up a whole cloth for this adventure?
So the topic of the trickster gods and the topic of the monsters I'm going to discuss are sort of intertwined.
Okay.
So I might skip back and forth in talking about.
Okay.
The trickster gods could come up in like the next 30 seconds,
and here they are.
But basically, when we sat down to begin preliminary brainstorming for the Tomb of Annihilation story, one of the ideas we had was that the tomb itself, built by one creep, a Sararak, was originally created to contain, like tombs contain dead things. That's why they're called tombs.
Right.
So one of the questions we had to ask is, well, if this is not a Sararak's tomb where he houses his own remains, whose tomb is it? And the answer to that question was, we came up with this idea that when a Sararak first came to Chult and kind of landed in Omu, he found that the Chultan people there were worshipping 9 deities. These deities had come to them after their primary greater god, Uptown, basically left. In an earlier segment, we talked about Uptown and how he kind of abandoned the Chultan people, or rather, they kind of abandoned him, and then he super abandoned them.
He double secret
Yeah, exactly.
Abandoned them in Mesra.
So them feeling the vacuum of faith, were very quick to take on these 9 beings who came to them and said, "We are gods. We will happily replace your gods and teach you how to do amazing things." And they did, because they're smart.
Were these actual deities, or were they?
No,
okay.
They were false deities. They had taken on the forms of creatures that they'd encountered in the jungle to sort of please and allay the Chultan people.
Okay.
And then they did teach the Chultan people things, but their powers were revealed to be very lacking when a Sararak showed up and killed them all.
Ah.
And he then committed their remains into the tomb. And over the years, the vestiges of their spirits, which were also trapped in the tomb, have existed there in sort of an underground purgatory. They were trapped inside of magic items, basically, and have been locked away down there, waiting for somebody to come into contact with them.
Okay.
Now, these 9 trickster gods, each of them had a different form that didn't necessarily reflect their demeanor. It's like, okay, one of the trickster gods ran into a Zorbo, which is a jungle-dwelling koala bear-like creature, and said, "I'm going to take that form."
That's me.
He didn't think that, what is the nature of the Zorbo? What is the alignment of the Zorbo? What does the Zorbo want? He says, that's me. And then, poof, I'm now a Zorbo.
He became Zorbo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of the gods had a similar experience. They chose creatures that didn't necessarily reflect their attitudes or disposition, but they just liked the forms, and that's how they presented themselves to the Chultan people. Many of these creatures that they chose are things that trace their origins back to the earliest days of D&D, because one of the things that I and Adam and Pendleton Ward and Richard Witters did.
Adam Lee, right.
Sorry. Adam Lee is a co-writer. He works with me on story stuff. Richard Witters is our senior art director, and Pendleton Ward is the creator of Adventure Time, who we brought in as a consultant. The 4 of us sat down and we flipped through old books and things, looking for creatures that you would or could find in Chult, and that these trickster gods could have emulated. And we picked 9. And actually, the first 9 that we picked were not the 9 that we ended up with.
Oh, okay.
Some of them survived from the very beginning. Others we swapped out. For instance, one of the creatures that we picked right from the outset was the Ixitzichitl.
Ixitzichitl.
Yes, very good.
Right.
And for those who don't know, that's a first edition monster that's basically a sentient ray, like a stingray or a manta ray.
Oh, okay. Not like a ray of light, but
correct. Yeah. And it lives in water and in oceans, actually, deep oceans, and it's very malevolent. They're chaotic evil. But
yes, I remember these now.
we decided that given the nature of Chult, they probably wouldn't dwell in the jungle proper, and even if they did, they'd be very confined to the water.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see an Ixitzichitl dancing across the land. So out that went. Another monster that we had picked and chosen that didn't ultimately get carried forward into the final 9 was the Sturge. And I don't remember the exact reason for that. We could have gone with the Sturge. In fact, I love Sturges. But ultimately, I think we decided, we sort of looked at the number of flying monsters and things like that. We tried to strike a balance between different kinds of monsters.
Right, so you didn't want something that was too similar.
Right. Yeah. But the ones that we landed on included the Mirage, which is a unicorn-horned bunny rabbit, which originally appeared in the first edition Fiend Folio. Another that we landed on was the Froghemoth.
Good old Froghemoth.
Yes, big old Froghemoth, which appeared in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks and later in the Monster Manual 2 for first edition. Classic fan favorite monster. There's a whole YouTube video about the Froghemoth that you've got to check out if you haven't seen it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, and Froghemoth. And so that was another one. And ironically, one of the god who assumed that form, the trickster god who assumed that form, is one of the nicer gods. So that's kind of fun.
Oh, he's a little bit evil though now because of the form that he took on?
Nope.
No?
He's a happy Froghemoth.
Interesting.
Or he was.
Yeah.
But actually, all of the trickster gods have some serious emotional problems and personality flaws, which is probably why they all died. And it also explains why they never got along very well.
So some of these were not from like native Chult monsters in a way, but they were just like monsters.
They were monsters that inhabited the jungles of Chult, but not necessarily their lineage is bound to Chult. Like you encounter Froghemoths in other places. They're sort of scattered throughout the cosmos, but they're not Chult specific. Same thing with the Mirage. It's not a Chult specific monster. In fact, the Mirage of Chult were brought to Chult by merchant traders from Zakhara.
Interesting.
The Arabic nation to the south.
So it almost is like a invasive species.
Yes.
To
It
Chult.
is an invasive species, the Mirage.
Interesting.
Another creature from the Fiend Folio that appears that one of the gods took the form of is called a Jakuli, which is a giant snake with amazing chameleon powers. So it can basically look invisible when up against another surface or object.
Okay.
It has the other scary, absolutely horrific ability to basically spring from trees like javelins and stab you.
Stab you? It can make its head and tongue so sharp that it can puncture flesh? What?
So suddenly trees are throwing javelins, like snake javelins at you, and you're going, what the?
Need some like snakes to sticks spell.
Another
on
Fiend
that
Folio monster that gets a lot of attention in Tomb of Annihilation because of its ties to the trickster gods is the Kamadan, which is a leopard-like creature with snakes coming out of its shoulders.
Yes, which I've
Six
seen
snakes.
miniatures from WizKids.
Yes.
The Tomb of Annihilation minis.
And the most recent cover of Dragon Plus has an homage to the Kamadan by
It
having the
does.
head with the snakes on it. Yes.
Yes. Have you seen that cover? It moves.
It moves, yes. It's a slinky cover.
It's animated.
Let's see. And then the Grung.
Chris Lindsay's favorite.
Chris Lindsay's favorite monster, which also appear.
What color is the trickster god Grung? Is it
we
colorless?
We don't actually say.
Interesting.
We don't say.
It's colorless, like colorless mana.
Yeah. And then another creature from the Classic Monster Manual 2 that very few people know about or is going to strike a chord probably is the Eblis, Eblis. It's a intelligent evil crane, about 10 feet tall.
Whoa. Because cranes are crazy-looking creatures.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
So very tall, slender, bird-like thing, big, long, pointed beak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Eblis are not only are they evil, but they do have sort of these prehensile claws, long legs with claws on the end. And they can build stuff. Like some of them actually build huts for themselves and live in them.
Oh, wow.
Do
they have a language? Are they able to?
Yeah,
to
they can communicate. They also are spellcasters.
What?
They have learned to cast spells.
Using their...
Yeah.
Wow.
A spellcasting, 10-foot tall, evil crane.
That's pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've been around big birds, but like swans or something like that.
Their grace
evil,
can
mean.
belie their meanness.
They will come after you. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're extremely graceful, but also very duplicitous and treacherous creatures. And they often pair up with other creatures more powerful than them for mutual protection, sometimes serving them as advisors or servants. They're really quite terrifying. And then another creature that is brought forward from the original monster manual is the Sioux monster.
The Sioux monster.
SU-monster. In the monster manual and in editions since, it is basically described as an oversized monkey that likes to hang by its tail and kill things with its claws while hanging upside down. So it just rakes things to pieces with its claws. But more fearsome than its claw attacks is that it's a psionic creature. Ooh. It can emit blasts of psionic energy that stun you, so you just stand there helpless while it tears you to ribbons. And the trickster god who decided that he wanted to take on the form of the Sioux monster, his name is Wongo, and he is a psychopath. He got a form that actually very much befits his temperament. And if you run into him, he is just batshit insane.
Interesting. Now, so the monkey connection is very odd because you want to think, oh, it's a cute little monkey, but these are not at all. No. Because there are also what is the cute monsters that are? Oh, I'm thinking of the Mirage actually.
The flying monkey is also in Chult.
The flying monkey is,
and they're very cute and looking, and they got beautiful feathered wings and all that. Whereas Sioux monsters are psychic devils, basically.
Can you tell the difference on sight?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. One has big feathered wings, the other doesn't. And the other is hanging from his tail, raking out your eyeballs.
Okay, so you might be able to look at them and tell them a little bit different. I didn't know if one was trying to camouflage
and Sioux
it as the
monsters
other.
Are smart enough that because they're intelligent, they can work together, they can conspire, they can gang up on you and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So now the reason we chose 9 trickster gods is because in the D&D game there are 9 alignments.
That's true.
And each trickster god belongs to a different alignment. What that means is that there are, with the exception of the neutral one, which I'll talk about momentarily, there are always 2 trickster gods that are diametrically opposed to each other. And that can create some interesting situations if both come into play at the same time.
Right, because things might not be able to be happening because of their...
Exactly. They will attempt to thwart one another or get under each other's skin, and that can be a real problem for the party in this adventure. Now, the neutral one has sort of served as a buffer, often, between these warring couples. There are 4 warring couples, and then the one at the center is sort of trying to keep everybody on an even keel. And that god's name is Unk. And she is the oldest of the lot, and probably the wisest, but most sort of contemplative and indecisive. And she decided to take the form of a flail snail.
Like you do when you're indecisive.
Right, which is another first edition Fiend Folio monster that has appeared in other editions since, that basically is a mind your own business monster. It doesn't typically threaten people unless you get up to it. And when you do, the first thing it will do to discourage you is blast you with scintillating light emanating from its pearlescent shell. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't discourage you, it will then club you to death with these tentacles that sprout from its head that have mace-like ends, and it just boom, 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 will beat you into submission with them. And a flail snail is not small. Its shell is about 10 feet tall at its highest point, so they're like giant boulder-sized creatures. Now, the one saving grace is they're slow.
Yeah.
So you don't have any problem running away from one, Just don't get cornered by an angry one.
And they don't generally want to attack you.
No, not generally. They're easily threatened. They feel easily threatened by other creatures, and so they will react. But generally speaking, they're passive.
But there were some older edition rules about harvesting that shell.
Yes, and in fact, in 5th edition, Fiend Folios were updated recently for the Volo's Guide to Monsters and given new art. And in the Volo's Guide entry on flail snails, we talk about their shells specifically because those shells have a legacy in D&D of being valuable.
Yeah.
And we talk in a sidebar in Volo's Guide about the value of the shells and what they can be used to make, including things like a robe of scintillating colors, which is a magic item in D&D with a long and storied history.
Were they always linked, the robe of scintillating colors and the shell?
I don't know if there was. I don't think that was mentioned specifically in the original incarnation of the creature, but it's come. I think it was first came up in like 4th edition or 3rd edition. I can't remember. 4th edition.
Yeah, makes sense because the shields was what I always remember. Were made from.
Yeah,
them.
and the shields can be made from them, and all kinds of stuff. I think even like invisibility stuff can be made from them. But anyway, so that shell, or you could just sell the shell, which I think if you get one intact, which is rare, I think it's worth something like 2,500 or 5,000 gold pieces or something like that.
But
so
it's heavy because it's
but
the size
it's
of a
obviously
boulder.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Now, this has nothing to do with the trickster gods, but it's worth mentioning that if you are looking for flail snail shells, you can buy a flail snail shell or purchase one, not in Port Nyanzaru, but in another lesser known establishment or another lesser known settlement called Ahoy Hoy.
Ahoy hoy.
Yes.
Is that like saying hello in?
It is. So it could be. Ahoy Hoy is a settlement of turtles.
The turtles, they finally made it.
Yes. So in Tomb of Annihilation, there's a 1-paragraph description of an island on the south of Chult called the Snout of Omgar. And we don't say much about it in the product. But what we have done is we've created a PDF that we're going to release around the time of Tomb of Annihilation. Exact release details to follow. That describes this island in great detail and paints it as the sort of origin place or nesting place of turtles.
Oh, I see. So it's like the South Pacific beaches where they always go back to in order to mate and spawn.
Yeah,
but
and
turtles
so
have that same
if
thing.
you want to play a turtle, this will contain rules for turtle player characters. It will also contain turtle guides and information on the turtle settlement of Ahoy Hoy, where you can go and buy cool stuff that you can't get elsewhere.
But you can buy a flail snail shell.
You can buy a flail snail shell there.
So say that 4 times.
Flail snail shell there.
Unique New York.
Yes, exactly. And so, yes, so if you're fond of turtles, there's another old monster that we've brought back for this story. It traces its origins back to the early edition of the Basic and Expert games. It appeared in a product called the Savage Coast, Module X9, and it appeared in a book called the Creature Catalog for the D&D Basic / Expert game.
Excellent. So I know that the turtles were of hot debate amongst the D&D team, 5 or 6 months ago. And is that...
Yeah, we did an informal Twitter poll. We did 2. Mike put up a poll asking people how much they hated turtles, and Jeremy put up a poll asking people how much they loved turtles. And after analyzing those results, we decided that the number of people who loved turtles versus hated turtles was a ratio of about 2 to 1.
Oh, all right. Very scientific results from those Twitter polls.
Actually, there were over, I think, 3,000 respondents, so it's actually
really?
pretty scientific.
That's not bad.
Yeah, scientific enough for our purposes.
I know.
So yes, I sat down on a couple weekends and hammered out a first draft, and Jeremy Crawford, who develops all of our mechanics, will be developing the turtle mechanics before they see the light of day.
Sweet. That's awesome. I can't wait to see that. And you're thinking about that on Dungeon Masters Guild or something like that? Or
Yeah, our plan is to put it up on Dungeon Masters Guild. If we charge for it, we're looking to have all the money go to one of our charities.
Makes sense. I love it. I wish there was like a tortoise-based charity we could give that to.
Yes. And for those who don't know, it will be called, fittingly enough, the Turtle Package.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. You can get your turtle package this fall.
Yeah. The runner-up title was Turtle Annihilation, but we decided that was probably a little too negative sounding. But it is a Tomb of Annihilation supplement, an official Tomb of Annihilation supplement.
I love it.
So turtles will be eligible as a player character race for people in Adventures League.
Oh, okay, great.
Very important to know.
That is very important to know, and we'll have all of the mechanics interweaving just for that reason. So perfect.
Yeah.
All right, well, great. That is a good download on all the weird and fantastic beasts in Chult, as well as had the
I left
gods.
I left some out too, just to surprise people when they pick up the product.
That's always good, yeah, because you didn't list all 9.
Yeah.
But there are a lot more fun stuff to be had and discovered within Chult. Where can people ask you for more information on? I'm sure it's just going to be all turtles all the time, but where can they ask you?
So they can reach out to me on Twitter at Chris Perkins DND.
Excellent. All right, great. Well, thanks, Chris, for taking over and being here. And if you guys want to watch our Lore You Should Know recordings live, we generally do it on Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. For those of you listening to this in podcast form, hopefully you can watch us live one day and ask maybe some questions after we do the segment. All right, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Oh my God, I think the chat went crazy when the turtles came about.
That has that effect.
That has that effect. Do you got like 5 minutes? You want to see if there's any questions here, people?
Yeah.
If you have any questions for Chris, based on what we just talked about, or anything else in
Or
general,
whatever.
just throw it as out there. Put question in there. I don't know where I fall on the turtle spectrum. I think I'm a true neutral turtle fan.
Well, if you're a true neutral turtle fan, I hope that the way that we describe me here will tilt you slightly over to the favorable.
Yeah. What do you like about them? Why were you pro turtle?
What I like about them is that they've got this life cycle that's fascinating to me. Without giving away the whole farm, basically, they're born in these forts that were built by their parents to protect them. And when they're old enough to walk, their parents tell them what they learned during their lifetime to survive. And then these young turtles go out and live their lifetimes, basically in a sense of sort of wanderlust. They go make friends, they go learn things, they hang out with new people, they make neighbors of anybody they can find. Then when they've gathered up a host of life experiences and become good hunters, weavers, weapon makers, artisans, metalsmiths, whatever, they're very industrious. They are drawn back to their home, where either they take up the old fort and repair it and refurbish it, or they build a fort of their own in which to lay their own eggs. And because turtles actually have a fairly short life expectancy, about 50 years, the urge to mate doesn't hit them until they're about 49. And then they quickly find a mate, they build a fort, and then they hatch their eggs, and then the cycle repeats. And one of the other things about turtles is they've got this weird kind of openness, which you don't expect from a creature so odd looking. They embrace like new religions very easily, so they don't have their own gods. But if you proselytize to them about a god and they like what they hear, they will become a champion of that god.
You're like, that's a good story.
That's a great story. I love that story. Yeah,
right.
I'm going to tell that story 1,600 times to everybody I meet because I love it so much. And then the other cool thing about them is their perceptions of the sun and the moon as these eyes that watch over and protect them.
Oh. Never really thought of it that way before.
Yeah, which is why they're very, very nervous about going underground.
Oh, because they will not be able to be seen by...
Yes. And one of the coolest things about turtles is on days when you can see the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time, they consider those to be very, very lucky days. And often they will go off on adventures on those days because they know that's the best time to go.
Yeah, because you got two
eyes
watching you. Can't be wrong.
Yep. Cloudy days, they're like, no, I think I'll stay home.
Here's a question. I don't know if you can answer it. Maybe we'll ask Chris Lindsay when he's on here. But will we see the Grung playable race that Chris used for his Stream of Annihilation game? Have you had any?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have not heard any murmurings of that ending up in anywhere official.
Yeah, but maybe. See, I like this turtle kind of
package. If the turtle package takes off, maybe Chris will be inspired to do whatever cool Grung name package he wants to do.
Yeah. The one I thought of, I can't say out loud. But and then that is also an answer to Gritty and your question, which is PDF plus DM's Guild plus purchase for charity. Are there plans for this to be more commonplace? We'll see. I mean, if the turtle package ends up being something, right?
We'll judge based on the reception of this product, whether it's worth doing again.
Yeah, seeing as you had to do it on your own time, that's always a big question there. So thank you for doing that. Oh, this is a good question from Jason Chamblin. What inhabits the Underdark of Chult?
Oh, that's a very good question. So the Underdark of Chult if you're just talking under Chult itself, is not that different from the Underdark anywhere else. But often you will find dwarves that have retreated down there, including surface dwarves who were driven down into the earth by all the volcanic activity on the surface, colliding with the Duergar who live down there. I don't recall if there are any major drow enclaves down there. I don't think there's been anything really codified about the drow down there. But the other thing you might find down there are ancient sunken cities of the Yuan-ti.
Oh.
Which is bad because those creatures are horrible.
Yeah.
They're horrible, horrible creatures. Yeah, so you'd almost certainly find them there. If you're a fan of Out of the Abyss, undoubtedly you'll find a lot of demons down there too.
Yes.
In the present time.
Because they had been released and not all of them went back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that if you have Out of the Abyss going, that could be happening in the surface realm as well, right?
Yes, yes. And I think there's at least one location described in Tomb of Annihilation that has potentially an access point into the Underdark, and that's Wormheart Mine. It's this mine that's been taken over by a dragon.
And that could lead all the way down to the Underdark. It
could lead all the way down to the Underdark.
Interesting.
Yeah. If you're talking under the Peaks of Flame, you may also encounter Yuan-ti there, but according to myth, there is also a huge gateway or doorway under the Peaks of Flame that leads to the nightmare realm of Dendar the Night Serpent, an underworld elder evil that threatens to unleash itself and consume the sun and destroy the world.
Yeah. Just normal run-of-the-mill
nothing
bad guys.
Good, nothing good is basically the short answer to your question, Jason.
But I like that. There's a lot of story threads there for sure. The Yuan-ti, I think you've said before, is your favorite or one of your favorite villain/monsters.
They are, and I was very excited to be able to use them in this story.
Sweet. Well, I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about them as the Turtles in Grung.
Yes, they're very Arthur Conan Doyle-esque.
We're basically going to have like a reptilian throwdown.
Yep. Oh, yes.
All reptilian monsters all the time.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, sir, for joining me. And I think we're done.
Yeah, great.
We'll take a little break here.
Back to work.
Yes, exactly. Go back to the minds of creating things.
Yep.
We are going to take a little break here, and then we'll be back with an interview from two gentlemen from the Wheelhouse Workshop who do amazing work in using D&D to help kids in their development. And I can't wait to pester them with questions, so it'll be fun. Alrighty.
And I'll be seeing them, I think, after you. They're going to come by and talk to me or something.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
cool.
So
great.
They might ask you to help them find me.
And which I'll lead them in a long quest.
I'll try not to leave before I see them.
All right, makes sense.
All right,
guys, we'll be back in a couple minutes.